Okay, we are at 10 seconds in. We're going to be doing things a little differently this time because I still have not found my gooseneck cameras or any of the things that I would normally use for my stream for crafting. So I'm using a little crafting desk because my new crafting desk is not set up yet, and I'm borrowing my works camera again because it's the one I've got access to. So, we go ahead and swap over. Okay. So, yeah, you'll get to see my chubby gut. This is going to be a watercolor. I have found so many so many paintbrushes this past, like, while I've been unpacking and stuff. Look at this. So many paintbrushes. But I'm going to use the one that came with the watercolor kit. Just for ease of use, a lot of these brushes have not been broken in at all. So, okay. Let's go ahead. This is a spaceship I drew. I don't remember when or why, but I drew a spaceship. So, of course, we're going to start with a silvery gray for the outside of the ship. That should be enough. And I don't want to take too heavy a hand with this. Sorry, y'all are going to see a lot of my... Maybe I should move my dipping cup over here and my paints can be there. Maybe that'll work a bit better so you guys don't see me just putting my hand in the way all the time. Only when I'm getting new paint on the brush. And of course, whenever I do like spaceships or anything, I always draw like access panels and things like that. Because you'd have to have a way to get to the inner workings of the ship to fix things, right? Like, it's like a car. You gotta have the way to get up under the hood, or else you're not going to be able to fix it if it breaks. And I'd assume spaceships would be much the same. I mean, we all saw Han and Chewie working on the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars, or at least those of us who have grown up watching Star Wars saw that. I think in the newer movies, we saw Rey working on the Millennium Falcon as well, after calling it a piece of junk. So, you know. I mean, it was a piece of junk. It was a piece of junk when Han and Chewie were flying it all the time. That was such a happy reunion type thing, seeing them getting to fly the ship again. I haven't seen anything past the first of the movies with Rey and Finn and Poe. I've heard a lot of things about, like, them basically writing out the story that was obviously being built up to with Finn. So I've been kind of like, nah. Rather not give money to somebody that's, you know, doing something I don't want to see. This might for a while basically be our crafting stream arrangement, is I pull up a chair and use my little TV tray table, and I have the laptop sitting up on my lap table on top of the bed. Hopefully by next week I will have the actual crafting area set up, but just today it got more stuff put in it that I have to find a home for. In this case it was box of clothes that had been washed and not put away, and I haven't been putting them away because I don't have a place to put them, because I put my clothes in like those big flat Rubbermaid bins, because I can tuck them under the bed and stuff, but I haven't found my bins. They're, I'm sure, somewhere in the garage. I did get a little cleaning done in there today to try and open up some space so that I can access things, but it's a work in progress, we'll say it that way. Sounds better than it's a massive mess that I'm completely uncertain of how to deal with due to executive dysfunction, you know. But it's a massive mess that I don't really know what to do with because, you know, there's just so much. Where do I start? Like, I think that's the biggest part of me, for me, with executive dysfunction, is figuring out a starting point. Because once I find a starting point and I figure out what steps I need to take, I can get things done. It's just finding that starting point that eludes me so often. And if I can't find the starting point, then I just kind of sit there surrounded by mess and shut down. Because what do? How do? Actually, I take that back. I know the how. I understand the how. It's the getting the steps in order, you know, and not falling into the, oh, this needs done, stop what I was already doing to get that taken care of. Which, believe me, my ADHD brain will happily find any other task that it could be doing to avoid doing what it should be doing. I hope y'all are getting decent lighting on this. I might need to turn the room light on just in case. But I can't really reach it because, so the way my room is currently set up, I've got a divider, I've got the bed against the, let's see, the room faces north, I've got a bed against the east wall. My workspace is in the northeast, or northwest corner. And then I've got my crafting space in the southwest corner. And I've got the crafting space and the workspace divided by a set of shelves on top of a set of the Tupperware bin, the Rubbermaid bins that are like 3 doors tall. And so right now my chair is wedged between the bed and the shelf and Rubbermaid bins, so I cannot leave my room unless I want to end the stream, move the chair. So I've got basically everything I need all in one space so that I can do my stream. Because otherwise, yeah, no, I cannot get up and pick something up that I need. I had to make certain that everything was all in place and ready. I can't suddenly go, you know what, we're not doing watercolor now, we're going to go do embroidery, because I would have to go and get the embroidery, and the embroidery is in the crafting area of the room, and yeah. Have made progress on it, by the way. Have not really done much with the satin or, I lost words again, satin stitch or French knots, but I did do a whole lot of stem stitching. Figure might as well get all the stem stitching out of the way, and then I can go do all the French knots, and then I can do any of the satin stitch that is needed. And then once all that is done, I can then do the last stitch, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but it's very pretty. And I'm sure I will screw it up, because it's my first time doing it. And that's okay. Like, nobody's paying me for it, you know. It isn't a memorial gift, which is, by the way, that's why I always end up stuck on the projects that are like crochet projects as memorial gifts, as I am terrified to make a mistake, because it's a memorial, you know. I've got a painting project I'm going to need to do soon that is also a memorial, and I'm kind of terrified, because I'm like, what if I fuck it up? What if it looks terrible? But I know it's not going to. But how do I get my brain to realize that? I don't know. It's part of being me. You have to figure out how to work with or against, depending on the circumstances, my brain. I think all humans are actually doing that, figuring out how to work with or against their brain, depending on what their brain is wanting them to do. Like, my kids asked me, you know, they were like, what's a neurotypical person like? I don't think I've ever met one. And I'm sitting there going, most people I know aren't neurotypical, so I assume there's somebody who goes through life never having to fight their own brain, which sounds like a dream. But the twins then followed up with, they're pretty sure everyone in their generation is non-neurotypical, or neurodivergent is the term, I think, right now. But they're pretty sure that all of their generation is neurodivergent, because they're pretty sure that all of my generation is also neurodivergent. And essentially that neurodivergent people really, you can't raise, you know, neurotypical kids if you're neurodivergent yourself. One, because of the genetic component, and two, because your kids grow up, you know, surrounded by neuroplasticity and neurodivergence, and so they just kind of never develop the neurotypical. Which they might very well be right. I mean, and a lot of the neurodivergence in my generation is due to generational trauma. Our parents were messed up from the get-go because of their parents' trauma, which a lot of their parents' trauma stems back to the Great Depression. I know that my mom's mom, excuse me, grew up during the Great Depression, and it definitely had an effect on her. She became a compulsive hoarder because she'd grown up in a time where if you didn't hoard it, you didn't have it. But that led to my mom developing anxiety because she grew up in a hoarding situation, and it made her very anxious because bugs and dirt and stuff. So, you know, and then I grew up with her anxiety, but in my case, I became much more like my grandmother. I'm not a hoarder by any means, but I prefer actually cluttered spaces, and, you know, I like to have all my stuff, and I like to have it all on display. I don't want it tucked away, hidden in boxes and stuff. Well, there's certain things I want tucked away, but that's because they're not appropriate for my kids to see. But I still want to have easy access to them, you know. So I much prefer, like, a small, cluttered room to, say, a big, open, very neat and tidy space. Drove my mother nuts, by the way. Well, more nuts. Because she couldn't stand how messy my room seemed to her, when to me it didn't seem messy. It just seemed like I had everything where I could see and access it as needed. Right now, with my space being as small as it is, like my room right now is smaller than my childhood bedroom was. So, because that was one of the things my mom insisted when she and Dad bought a house and built it, was it had to have large rooms, because she did not like small. She's I believe the term is agoraphobic, where she's afraid of wide open spaces, but it's not so much the wide open spaces that bother her, it's the people in them. She's afraid of being around people. By the way, if anyone does want to chip in, I can see the chat today. You'll just have to deal with me, forgetting to look at it for every now and then. Once I remember to look, I'll respond. I think it makes a noise at me when something pops up, so maybe that'll alert me. We're going with a slightly different shade of gray for the doors and panels and stuff. To me, it looks pretty much the same, but I promise it's a different one. It's a more brownish, darker gray. Maybe I just need to get the... There we go. Because, of course, if you had access panels, you'd want them to stand out some, so that people would know where they were. At least that makes sense to me. You wouldn't want them to all be the same color. It's not like a car door, where you've got the window to indicate this is a door. Lots of gray in this picture, though. Like, a lot of gray. But that's okay. I might actually swap and use a different brush for some of these, because some of these are, like, super small and tiny. And I might need something smaller to avoid, like, destroying details. I don't know how well you guys can see what I'm doing. Half the time I think my hand's in the way. Okay, so there's all of our access panels. Now for the lights. And this is where I think I'm going to swap to a different brush. Not giving this a super good cleaning, but that's okay. Okay, so one of these brushes has a tiny, tiny tip. That's the one I need. I think this one will do. Oh wait, you know what? It would be smart if I use this brush to get things wet. Sorry, if I use this brush to get things wet before I so we're getting a pink and a yellow. The water in the rinse cup is very glittery now. And do a green. Copper red. Brighter green. And I'm making it a point to rinse my brush before swapping colors at any point, because I don't want the colors bleeding together. I've worked very hard to ensure that they haven't. So, okay. Now, let's start with some red lights. Let's see, I chose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's a tiny one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, red light's done. Let's now do blue. So, I don't need to count now because I just do one after every red. The blue does kind of fade into the gray, which is, you know, not the best, but it is still a distinct color. Let's go with yellow. Yellow light. Yellow light. Yellow light. Yellow light. Yellow light. Oh, itchy. Yellow light. Yellow light. And then this way back one. Tiny blob of yellow. And we're also, while we're at it, going to go ahead and do some of these. So he's got a yellow readout there. Scar Alien is wearing a bright yellow shirt. Because he's a happy extraterrestrial visitor to our planet, you know? He comes not for your war, but for tacos. What better thing to come for than tacos? Sorry, I'm reminded of a joke from my asexual friend. Okay, we're going to do pink lights now, and then the last one will be the green. And if you're seeing me kind of flip my brush over, there's a reason for that. It's that sometimes the paint is thicker on one side of the brush, and by flipping the brush over, that's the wrong shade of green. You know what? We're going to use it anyway. We'll use that other green for something else. Green. 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 And green. Okay. The paint water is very pretty, just so you know. Alright, this is kind of a sickly, yellowy green. And we're going to use that right here. When I originally drew this, I thought of these like a instrument panel, or like how sometimes you'll have a car where the parts of the engine are exposed to make it easier to work with. But actually, I think that's a cooling thing, not a ease of use thing. But still, that's what I was thinking of. But you know, who knows? Maybe this is the alien equivalent of a license plate. Okay, so now we have a lot of really small, delicate bits on this internal panel, the internal console. We're going to do that. Let's see. Hold on. Use this again to give us our... There we go. Get that good and wet. And wash my brush again. I'm sure that, like, a professional artist would do something smart, like, okay, I'm going to put water from a dropper into each of the colors I'm going to use, or something like that. I don't know. I have a friend who's a professional artist. I could probably ask. Though I think most of his work is either acrylic paints or... well, I just lost words. Or digital. Digital's the word. Sorry, I'm blocking y'all's vision again. I really need somebody who, like, lives with me or knows me personally to watch my streams, and then when I'm blocking the camera like that, they can just come to my room and go, "Hey, you're blocking the camera. Stop it." But nobody in my house watches my streams, so it's okay. I will just watch my own streams so I know when I'm blocking the camera. As always, all of this was done with calligraphy pen and ink prior to me painting it. I've just been doing these one drawing a day, and now I'm going back because I filled this sketchbook entirely, so I'm going back and using it to paint the drawings that have been completed. I'll probably do the same with the next sketchbook once it's finished. It's about halfway empty now. And what I'm going to do once I finish the instrument panels and all of that is I'm going to go over everything very lightly with a blue wash to indicate the glass. And let's say that his steering column is the same color as his console, because to me that makes more sense. Okay. Now, we've got... let's see. We can see a little bit of his pants. So I'm just going to get some blue to do those. And we need to color his seat. And we've got another instrument panel, so let's pick up more of that green for it. Okay. His seat. His seat should be, I don't know, what color is a good captain-y seat color? Actually, he's not really so much a captain as a, as a traveler. Let's say his skin is... I'll go with this color for his skin. We're going to go ahead and paint him. Oh, I think I just obliterated one of his eyes. Whoops. You wouldn't see it too well through the glass anyway. That's my story, I'm sticking to it. Okay. Let's do... I just kind of want him to stand out compared to everything else. So we're going to do this darker green on his seat. And with his bright yellow shirt, it should make him stand out just a hair compared to his surroundings. Alright, so we are done with the fine details. We're going to set this brush down. And we're going to get our bigger brush again. And I'm going to use the pale blue that I have. I'm just going to go... I want the parts that are not actually someone else to be the, or not actually showing him or his instrument panels, etc., to be the brighter blue, because I don't want to completely wash him out by doing the blue over him. There we go again. Mason, you're blocking the camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the paint that is thicker on the brush to kind of wash over everything. And then once there's almost no paint left on the brush, you can see that it's starting to get thinner and thinner as I... Well, no, you can't because I'm blocking the camera again. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just swoop over some of these areas that have more paint. I'm going to just kind of drag that more paint over him and his instrument panel to just give a very faint wash. I'm not even picking up new paint from the brush with the brush to do this. I'm just gathering bits of the blue there. Okay. So, let's wrong direction. There you go. That is our finished spaceship. So now, I'm going to move my thing because I'm going to do this, and we have a raccoon. that y'all can't really see because of how things are set up. Okay. I still need my dip cup over here. I think that's going to be as good as it's getting. Our raccoons, of course, are gray. So, with some black. So we're going to focus on... This is just going to be a day with a lot of grays in it. Sorry. It just is. Nothing wrong with gray days, I suppose. We always have a few of them ourselves. Life is, after all, a mix of ups and downs, and we love with both. You can't have sunshine every day, or else the plants wouldn't grow, because you wouldn't have any rain. You can't be super productive every day, or you'll burn yourself out. We need time to rest and recuperate sometimes. I'm trying, guys, I promise. So some days we end up painting mostly in grays, and that's okay. We're still painting. I always joke to my friends about this drawing. I was like, this raccoon just woke up from a nap. And it's not thrilled to be awake. Because that's how the raccoon looks to me. It looks like somebody who just got woken up from a nap and is kind of staring at you bleary-eyed and going, wait, what? He doesn't want to be awake. He wants to go back to bed. Maybe it's spring and one of his raccoon friends just woke him up to say, hey, we're done. We're done hibernating. Wake up. Do raccoons hibernate? I don't know if they do or not. I think this one would very much like to if they don't. He's like, no. Just wake me up when there's food again. Actually, don't wake me up when there's food again. Just let me sleep. I'll wake up when I want to. I think that's what this raccoon says. It's just like, please let me sleep. I'll wake up when there's food is something I have said more than once to my family. I don't actually get to wait until there's food to wake up, though. I get woken up a lot. Like today, I went to bed at 8 a.m. At around 10-ish, I got woken up because my partner and my kids were doing lawn work, which, yay, I'm very glad they were, but they decided to use hedge trimmers to cut back the bushes right outside my window. So I got woken up by thunk, thunk, thunk of the hedge clippers being used over and over and over. And then I finally got back to sleep because they finished that area, only to be woken up at 11:30 because my partner had cut himself and needed a Band-Aid, and the twins didn't know where the Band-Aids were, even though the Band-Aids were in the bathroom, which you think they would realize that? They were sitting right out on the Anyway, um, got back to sleep, ended up sleeping until 3:30, so I at least got sleep, just not all in one piece. Raccoon gonna coon. But in this case, raccoon don't want to coon. Raccoon just want to sleep. I think it's turning out pretty good so far. At the moment, we are just working on the gray plain parts. We'll pick up some other colors here in a bit. Oh, good, I'm not blocking the camera. This is a very awkward angle to paint, but you know what? It's worth it so that you guys can watch the process. And I'm not too worried about the fact that his gray isn't uniform. Have you ever looked at a raccoon? Like, really looked? Not just the cute pictures you see online, but an actual raccoon. Their fur is not uniform. They are not the picturesque animal that everyone assumes them to be. They're scrubby and grubby and have grabby hands, and they will touch you with those grabby hands whether you want them to or not. In fact, they love to touch you when you know, were not expecting to be touched. That's one of their favorites. They wait until you're sleeping and then they run their fingers through your hair. Because raccoons are extremely tactile animals, and human hair is fascinating. I suppose most animal fur would also be fascinating for them, but they probably don't want to get eaten, and they don't worry about humans eating them. Maybe they should. But they don't. Humans aren't really much of a threat to a raccoon. Raccoons are, however, very much a threat to humans. So if you see a wild raccoon, don't try to pet it, don't try to feed it. Please don't. It's bad for you, it's bad for the animal. It results in raccoons that have to be shot by Fish and Game because they've become a menace, or humans getting bit by one that is rabid. Just leave the wildlife to be wild. Let Fish and Game take care of it if you see one that has been injured or looks like it is acting very strangely. In fact, if it's acting very strangely, please, 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 please let Fish and Game handle it, because we do not want you contracting rabies. And you can absolutely get rabies from a rabid raccoon. Rabies is not just well, you have to be bit to get it. No, it is a very, very virulent virus. If it gets collected in the saliva, that is why most of the time it's bites that you worry about. But if a raccoon is drooling because it has rabies, and that drool gets on your hand, if you have an open wound anywhere, you're dead. Okay? I mean, you can... There's a course of shots you can take if you catch it right away. Like, it literally has to be oh crud, I got bit. Let's go get those shots because I don't know if this animal was rabid or not, okay? If you catch it right away, there's a chance you're going to live. But it's only a chance. It's not you will definitely survive this. It is if everything possible goes right, we can stop it before you actually contract it, and therefore you will live. If that doesn't happen, if you catch it just a little too late, if you wait to go to the doctor or the hospital, in fact the ER, go to the ER, say, I believe I've been bitten by something, it might have been rabid, it was XYZ, a raccoon, a squirrel, whatever, that was acting very strange, was drooling, was shaking its head a lot, you know. Get it cleared to the ER that, hey, I might potentially have been exposed to rabies, you know, and maybe you will survive. Rabies is horrible. Rabies is... yeah. I cannot express how awful rabies is. You would have to have seen a rabid animal or seen a person who had contracted rabies to understand the sheer magnitude of horror of that disease. It makes you deliriously thirsty, but terrified of water. Like, you develop hydrophobia to the point that your throat will start closing up if you try to drink. Because drinking might wash away that saliva, and rabies does not want that saliva washed away. And yes, I am talking about rabies as if it was a living, thinking being. But that's because of how terrifying it is. Sorry, as a person who lives in an area where rabies happens, yes, it's bad. It is. It's terrifying, horrifying. You don't want to fuck with it at all, ever. Don't put yourself in a position where you might have to. There's a reason why vets, you basically have to get vaccinated, like, right away. You get vaccinated as soon as you become a vet, or even when you're still just vet tech. Because who knows, somebody might bring in their dog that they hadn't gotten vaccinated, because some people are idiots. Sorry, they are. If you're not getting your animals vaccinated for rabies, you're an idiot. We had one animal, she was so old that the vet was like, we don't want to give her vaccinations, but she still got vaccinated for rabies. It was the one vaccine that we were like, no, we're doing it anyway. And with good reason. Like, yeah, she was indoor only. She never went outside. But you know what? You know what? We had mice that would come in. Every now and then a rat would get in. Squirrels can get in an amazing number of places. You'd be stunned to realize just how easily a squirrel could get inside your house. And should any of those creatures have had rabies, and she decided to, fight them, bite them bite her, oh look, now our cat's got rabies and she can give it to the entire household. So no, she got a rabies vaccine, even if it was the only thing she was vaccinated against at that point. Because the vet was like, she is so old, I don't want to give her, these other vaccines. Just don't leave the wildlife to be wild. Just leave it at that. Let the wildlife be wild. Let them do their thing. You can do your thing. If you see an animal in the wild and it appears to be coming towards you, make yourself big. Try to scare it away. If it continues, then you give ground. You move so the animal can continue on its way. Like, I took a lot, even though I know that possums almost never have rabies because their body temperature is either it's too low for rabies to really get a handhold on them, I still took precautions to make certain that I never came in contact with possum saliva. Did inadvertently come in contact with possum shit, because one shat on me when I was moving it out of the house and to a safer location. But as soon as I could, I washed that too. we're going to give Mr. Raccoon here some pink inside the ears. Not a lot of pink, not a deep, rich pink, but a very muted, pale pink. Most animals do not have very brightly colored... I'm sorry, my shirt keeps winding out. Most animals do not have brightly colored mucous membranes, unless it is specifically used for, like, displaying I'm in estrus. That's why baboons' butts do that. Or I'm a virile male, you know, etc. I'm going to go over the body with a brown. Not a ton of it, but just a little bit of a wash. Most of the tail I'm going to just leave as is. We want to just... because raccoons aren't all gray. They're brown and gray, and black, and a little bit of white, but white's hard to do with these, so we just stuck with a paler gray. But I wanted to do that gray base first, because that is, you know, far more their dominant color. A quick wash of this brown. I'm getting a lot on the brush, but I'm doing light, quick strokes that don't lay down a lot of the paint. Oh, the doggies have found something to talk about. That's okay. Dogs do that. Okay, so there's our raccoon. All finished. It's been almost an hour, so I'll go ahead and prop this up. There we go. Raccoon. Fat and round and sleeping. And here's our spaceship, which I can't show you very well because I don't want to drop it on top of the raccoon. However, it is completely dry. So, it's one of the things I love about working with watercolors is how fast they dry. Okay, bear with me just a second. I can probably get this one done in just a little bit. As you see, it is a plushie of some sort that is labeled Baffy. That is because my roommate has a Baphomet plushie. Or Baphomet, however you pronounce it, we call it Baffy. And at one point Baffy needed some care because Baffy had managed to split a seam on Baffy's butt. So, being our resident fiber worker, I got the job of sewing up Baffy's butthole. And believe me, we drove that joke into the ground. There were many, many jokes about Baffy's butthole. I mean, why wouldn't there be, you know, goat butt? wish I could go and ask him if I could borrow Bathy so I can have a reference for his color. But I can't get out. I'm stuck. If I remember rightly, Bathy is mostly gray, so we'll be working with that. He's either mostly gray or mostly black. He might have a gray head and a black body. I think I'm going to work with that, because that's pretty much how I remember. I love how I always look up when I hear noises outside, even though from right here my view is the power lines and the tops of some trees. My window is high enough up in the wall that I actually have to like stand up to look at it. I can't see it from sitting even on my bed, which is fairly high up. You want to see outside, you put in the effort to see outside. Oh, I'm going to be glittery for days. Sorry, trying not to block the camera, I keep forgetting. Now, the one thing I did get to see very well out my window was a mourning dove decided my windowsill, outside of course, was the perfect safe spot to land, which resulted in me getting some excellent pictures of said mourning dove. I ended up worried it was sick because it was so just not moving much. So I ended up going outside. So I'm picking up some of the darker spots of gray and spreading them. Okay. Now we're going to do black. More black. Lots of black. Real quick, I'm going to do the tail. Just so y'all know, I am basically having to paint upside down to keep my hand out of the camera. Some spots I don't have to, though. Bathy's plush is very round. He is a very fat goat. Which I suppose for a goat, that's the way you want to be. I mean, most ungulates, if they had it their way, would just do nothing but eat and sleep, because, and have sex, because, of course. But, you know, that's how they measure success on a survival scale. Are you eating enough that you're putting on weight to last through lean times? Are you having enough sex that you can spread your genes? Evolutionarily, most animals are meant to eat, sleep, fuck, and that's about it. It's what we're built for. Eat, sleep, fuck. And yet we humans were like, no, we're going to build tools and houses and have jobs. And develop anxiety. We should have stuck with the bonobos. Bonobo, bonobo, however you say it. Pretty much our closest relative. And well, one of our closest relatives among the primate family. And they use sex to settle conflicts. Oh, you two are fighting? Here, let me give you both, you know, here, let me and my friend have sex with you. Then you won't want to fight anymore. Well, what do you know? It worked. I mean, of course they know it worked. They've been doing it forever. But, oh, hey, you're unhappy. Let me groom you. They're very social. Very, yeah. We should have done what bonobos did. Just like, we will settle everything with a sex-off. And we will sit in trees and eat fruit. Fruit is delicious. I have grapes in the fridge. I might go get grapes once I'm done with my stream. Because grapes are also delicious. Daffy, you've got one side of your face that is weird compared to the rest, so I'm going to just darken that side just a bit. It still looks weird, but you know what? It'll do. Big thing I'm saying is, you know, capitalism was a mistake, war is wrong, and we should all have more sex and eat more fruit. Most of us probably need more fruit in our diets, let's face it. Plus, fruit is so good. Veggies are good too, depending on the veggie. I mean, there are veggies I don't like. There are fruits I don't like too, but they're very few and far between. Most fruits I'm like, yes. Pomegranates. Pomegranates are one of them that I'm not really impressed with. Too much effort for too little reward. Figs and dates, though, delicious. Was very disappointed to find out with fresh figs, you have to eat them in a really weird way, or they, like, try to digest your mouth. So, you know, that was interesting. Because I've got a whole box of fresh figs, and I'm like, no, there's effort involved. Why couldn't I just get dried figs that don't have that effort? Peaches are delicious, though. Peaches are amazing. Okay. And that's a Baffy. And I still can't get this pink. There we go. Alright. So, I think we are done with this week's stream. Oop, no, there goes my water. Baffy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I do want to thank everyone who came out today. I hope that you had a lot of fun. I hope that this arrangement was at least somewhat better for actually watching the stream and seeing what I'm doing. I've got to figure out something to do about the hands, but I'll figure it out later. Otherwise, though, I do want to thank everyone who came out. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your week. take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll see you next week.